My brother's message lit up my phone. We don't want you at Thanksgiving. Just like that, I was erased from a tradition I once carried on my back. I had cooked, cleaned, smiled through their coldness. Still, I was too much for them. Or maybe I was just finally enough for myself. That night, I cried in my car, then made a list, not of groceries, of names. Every person they overlooked, discarded, ignored. I invited them all. I wasn't just cooking a turkey, I was roasting a legacy. And this time, the only thing off the table was forgiveness. I used to believe family was forever. That no matter how complicated things got, blood would always find its way back to blood. But maybe forever has an expiration date, and maybe mine already passed. Last Thanksgiving, I was in the kitchen for 9 hours. I basted the turkey every 30 minutes. I made 4 pies from scratch. I handled Mark's tantrum about the stuffing being too dry and Mum's passive-aggressive remarks about my alternative lifestyle. I smiled in every photo, holding the carving knife like a prop. Always just behind the real family, the ones who got to sit down, laugh and eat while I hovered in the doorway, waiting for someone to notice I hadn't had a bite. No one ever did. They liked me best when I was useful. When I played the role of therapist, fixer, peacekeeper, I was the one who smoothed over the arguments, the one who edited out the cruelty and reframed it as stress or misunderstanding. That's just how Dad is, I'd say. She didn't mean it like that, I'd soothe. But this year, something shifted. Or maybe, finally, I did. It started with a text. Mark's name popped up on my screen while I was in line at Trader Joe's. I had a cart full of sweet potatoes, cranberries, and a 20-pound turkey. We don't want you at Thanksgiving. 7 words, no punctuation, no emotion, no explanation, just a sentence, like a sentence past. I stared at the screen for a full minute, then I typed what, then why, then is this a joke? Scene. That little word sat under my message like a tombstone. I stood frozen between the frozen turkeys and boxed stuffing mix, phone trembling in my hand, unsure whether I should laugh or cry or throw the turkey across the aisle. A child nearby dropped a box of crackers. It startled me into motion, as if the sound alone had broken some invisible seal on the world. I walked out without buying anything. Later that night, I got a voice note from my mother. Her tone was light, rehearsed. "Sweetheart, maybe just sit this year out. Let things breathe. It's been a tense year for everyone, and you can be intense. You know how Mark is. He just needs space." Mark needs space. And what about me? What did I need? Besides, apparently, a personality transplant? I replayed the message 4 times before deleting it. Each time I hoped I'd misunderstood her, but her voice never changed. There was no crack, no hesitation, just the calm authority of someone who's already chosen their side. I didn't sleep that night. I walked circles around my apartment, trying to replay every interaction from the last year, searching for a moment I might have caused this. I remembered how I'd spoken up when Dad made that racist joke, how I didn't laugh when Mark made fun of Susan's weight, how I stopped apologising for being single, for being child-free, for being a therapist who actually goes to therapy. Maybe that was it. Maybe I'd become too whole for them to handle. The next morning, I went back to the store, the same aisle, but this time I wasn't holding a turkey. I was just standing, numb, hollow, trying to remember why I'd ever wanted to be at a table where I was only ever welcome when I made myself small. Then a woman, stranger, brushed past me, turned around and said, "Sorry, you look like someone I know, but you're not her. She wouldn't look this sad." I tried to smile. "Failed." She hesitated. "Whatever it is, they're not worth that look. Whoever made you feel like this, they don't deserve you." It was a simple kindness, thrown carelessly into the world like a coin in a fountain. But it hit me harder than any insult I'd received from my family. I went home and poured a glass of wine, sat in silence. And then I opened my laptop. I clicked open a blank document, titled it Operation Gratitude. Because this year I was still doing Thanksgiving, but not the way you think. It didn't stop with the text. That was just the first drop in what quickly became a flood. 3 days after Mark's message, I was removed from the Miller family group chat. No announcement, no warning. One day I was replying to a meme my cousin sent. The next, the chat was gone. At first I thought I'd accidentally left it. I asked my aunt about it. She ignored the message. Then I checked Facebook. A new photo had been posted by my cousin Amanda. Everyone was in it, my parents, my brothers, their spouses, their kids, even the family dog. The caption read, "And family first." I stared at it, searching for any sign that I'd simply missed an invite. Maybe I was cropped out by accident. Maybe it was a throwback photo. Nope. Everyone looked older, their clothes fall-themed, the kitchen freshly decorated. This was new. I wasn't just excluded, I was deleted. In a moment of defiance or maybe desperation, I posted a simple quote to my own feed, "Chosen family." Blood. Family. No commentary. No names. 15 minutes later, I got a DM from Amanda. "Drama queen much?" I didn't reply. Instead, I stared at my screen, trying to decide if I should cry or scream. I chose neither. I just went numb. A dull, aching kind of silence set in behind my ribs, like grief trying to take root. Then 2 days later, I got a voice message from someone I hadn't heard from in years, my cousin Lila. Her voice was soft, almost whispering. "Hey, Rach, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but..." And they've been talking about this for a while, since like August. "Mark said you were too unpredictable, said therapy made you worse. I didn't agree, but I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry." I sat there, holding my phone, listening again and again. Since August. So it wasn't impulsive. It wasn't about me saying something wrong recently. It was planned, coordinated. I messaged back, "Why? What did I do?" No response. Then, a few hours later, the message from Lila was gone. Deleted, as if it had never existed. The silence around me grew louder, heavier. I started questioning everything. Had I been unstable? Did I overreact? Was I too intense, too emotional, too outspoken? I dug out a flash drive from a drawer in my desk, the one where I kept backups of old emails, journals, and yes, therapy records. I scrolled through old notes, session summaries, and letters I'd written but never sent. Most of them were calm, thoughtful, filled with emotional processing and insight. So why did they say therapy had made me worse? That night, I logged into my old student portal from college. Out of habit, I tried my credentials, and surprisingly, they still worked. I didn't expect to find anything. But curiosity took me to the campus health records page. There was a line marked "Accessed by Third Party, Administrative Override, March 15th, 2018. I froze. That was the month my mum came to visit. She'd brought me soup, said she missed me. asked for my password to check on a school billing issue. I'd given it to her. I never changed it back. My mother had accessed my therapy records. I felt sick. The next morning I called her. She picked up with a smile in her voice. "Rachel, how are you feeling?" "Why did you look at my records?" There was a pause. "I don't know what you mean." 2018, you logged in, you read my files. A longer pause. "I did it for your own good. I was worried. You weren't well and no one was helping you." "You weren't supposed to help me. You were supposed to love me." "I do love you," she said, and then her voice broke. You don't make it easy." I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just disconnected. I turned off my phone and stared at the wall, but I wasn't done. Later that evening, I opened my email. I typed Rachel in the search bar. Hundreds of results, most of them irrelevant, but one stood out. It was from Mark, sent to Mom, with a subject line, "Rachel Crisis Plan." I clicked. The file attached was a bullet-pointed PDF. "Limit contact to reduce emotional fallout, frame absence as her choice. Emphasize instability in case of public reaction. Monitor social media for damage control." It read like a PR guide. I stared at it for a long time, then closed the laptop slowly, my hand trembling. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd prepped for it, planned for it, managed it like I was a liability they needed to eliminate. But liabilities can talk, and I was done being quiet. I wasn't ready to give up on my mother. Not yet. Even after everything, the silence, the erasure, the betrayal, I still wanted to believe that blood meant something, that maybe, beneath all the manipulation, there was still a piece of her that wanted me. So I texted her. "Coffee? Just us." She replied quickly, almost too quickly. "Sure. Tomorrow?" We met at a quiet little cafe downtown, the kind with plants hanging from the ceiling and baristas who smile too much. I got there early, heart pounding, fingers twisting the edge of a napkin until it shredded. She arrived 10 minutes late, perfectly composed, like always. "Rachel," she said, kissing my cheek, "you look tired." "I am," I said. We sat, ordered. The air between us was brittle, ready to snap. "I wanted to talk," I began, "about Thanksgiving, about everything." She sipped her coffee, eyes calm. "It's a stressful time for everyone." "That's not what this is," I said. "It's not just stress." She put her cup down, folded her hands. "Rachel, you have to understand. Mark has a lot going on, and sometimes you make things harder. So you're choosing him." "I'm not choosing anyone," she said, then paused. "But if I had to, I'd choose the child who needs me." The words hit like a slap, sharp, unmistakable. "I needed you," I whispered. She blinked. "You've always been strong." That wasn't strength, that was survival. I stood up, left my untouched coffee on the table, walked out before the tears could fall. I didn't cry until I got home. And even then, it wasn't sadness, it was rage, decades of it, buried under politeness and patience and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, love could be enough. But it wasn't. Later that night, I got a message on Facebook from an old friend of my mum's, Sandra. I barely remembered her, some church friend, I think. But the name rang a bell, the message was short. "You didn't get this from me." Attached was an audio file. I stared at it for a long time before pressing play. "If she keeps pushing, we'll just say she chose not to come," my mother's voice said, clear as day. "She's not stable right now. Mark says she's been acting out. Honestly, it's better this way. We can't have her stirring things up. Thanksgiving is about family." "Do you think she'll make a scene?" another voice asked. Not if we handle it right. Silence, then laughter. I dropped the phone, let it thud against the couch cushion. My face went cold. Not angry, not hurt, just blank, like my body had turned off all non-essential systems to prevent a total collapse. I played it again and again. Each time I waited for a different version. One where she defended me. One where she hesitated. One where she sounded like a mother. But that version didn't exist. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. My eyes looked hollow, stripped. "This is the truth?" I whispered, but no one answered. The next day, I shut off my phone, closed the curtains, ignored the blinking email notifications. I didn't go to work, didn't go to therapy, didn't eat much. Just drifted between sleep and numbness. There was no anger now, only emptiness. One night, I opened my email and began to type a message to my best friend, Alina. Subject, just in case. In the body I wrote, "If I don't make it through this, publish everything, the whole story, the files, the messages, the audio, let people know." I didn't send it, I just saved it in drafts. Maybe I wanted her to find it, maybe I wanted to be saved, maybe I was already too far gone to care. But Alina did find it. She knocked on my door 2 nights later, frantic. "Rachel!" she shouted. "I'm not leaving, I know you're in there." I sat frozen on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, eyes dry but unfocused. The knocking continued, then stopped. Then came the key. Of course she still had a key. She came in, gasping, eyes darting until they found me. "Oh my God," she whispered, dropping to her knees. "You scared me." I didn't speak. She held my face in her hands. "I don't care what they said. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not alone." I broke then. Broke like a dam, like a window in a storm. I cried in her lap, every sob a piece of the weight I'd been carrying for years. When I could finally speak, I said, "I don't know who I am anymore." "You're Rachel," she said. "You are enough. And you are not what they made you believe." She helped me to the couch, made tea, lit a candle, sat with me in silence. Later that night, I opened my laptop, opened a blank document, typed the first sentence. This is how they erased me. The first time I posted the story, I used a pseudonym, R. I titled the series, "When Your Family Hates You." It wasn't meant to go viral. I didn't expect anyone to care. I just needed somewhere to put the truth, somewhere it could live outside my head, where it had been rotting in silence. The post was raw. No fancy prose, no poetic redemption. Just moments, details. My mother's voice saying, "You're too much." Mark's email outlining how to erase me. The photo they posted without me. The silence that followed. By the end of the first day, it had 500 shares. By the end of the week, it had 30,000. People messaged me, strangers, survivors. They said, "This is my life. This is my mother." I thought I was the only one. They told me things they hadn't told their therapists, their spouses, their gods. The pain was collective, familiar, and suddenly I wasn't alone anymore. A podcast reached out, broken bloodlines. They wanted to feature the story. Anonymous, if I preferred, just my voice. I agreed. The interview went live a week later, my voice disguised, my name withheld, but my words, they were mine. "You can survive your family," I said in the final minutes. And surviving doesn't always mean reconciling. Sometimes it means choosing yourself over tradition, over silence. The clip was shared everywhere. Then came the comment. Under a repost of the blog, someone had written, "I think this is about our family." The name was familiar. Mark's wife's cousin. It wasn't accusatory, it was curious, as if they were piecing it together but didn't fully believe what they were seeing. I stared at the comment for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. For weeks, I had let the words speak for me from the shadows. But shadows weren't enough anymore. I opened my blog, edited the About section. I typed, Rachel Miller, daughter, therapist, ghosted by blood, reclaimed by truth. Then I opened my camera, pressed go live. My hand trembled slightly, but my voice didn't. "My name is Rachel Miller," I said, "and this is the truth." I told the story, all of it. The family that silenced me, the brother who scripted my disappearance, the mother who read my therapy files without consent. The moment I almost gave up. And the moment I decided not to, I ended the live stream with a promise. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not asking for reconciliation. I'm asking for something more radical, clarity, accountability. And for anyone else out there who feels erased, this next chapter is for you. And it was. I began planning Thanksgiving, not the kind I'd grown up with, not the kind with guilt and hierarchy and judgment, served alongside stuffing. No. This one was different. I called it For Everyone Who Was Ever Left Out. The guest list was unconventional. The neighbour whose son hadn't spoken to him in 5 years, a high school teacher who'd been disowned for coming out, my barista who cried when I invited her. "I haven't had a holiday dinner in 10 years, she whispered. "I cooked, I decorated, I hired a friend to photograph the whole thing, not for show, but for memory." The night of the dinner, people arrived slowly, cautiously, as if still unsure they belonged. But once they stepped through the door, everything softened. Laughter bloomed, plates were passed, hands were held, and then, at the edge of the room, standing in the hallway like a ghost, my grandmother, the last person I expected to see. She wore a navy coat, clutched a pie tin, her eyes were rimmed in red. "Grandma," I said. She stepped forward slowly. "I wasn't invited," she said, "but I heard and I needed to come." I didn't know what to say. We hadn't spoken in years. She'd always stood behind my mother, quietly echoing her judgments. "I read your blog," she said, placing the pie on the table. "I recognise the patterns because I've lived them. Your mother, she wasn't always this way, but she was shaped by something, and I didn't stop it." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small box, wrapped in old floral paper, edges soft with time. "This belonged to your father," she whispered. "He asked me to give it to you, if things ever got bad." My throat closed. Inside the box were letters. Dozens, handwritten. Dated across years I'd believed he'd been absent by choice. They told another story of a man who had tried, who had warned my mother, who had begged her not to pit the children against each other. In one he wrote, "If you ever read this, Rachel, I hope you're still fighting. I hope you found your voice. I love you more than you'll ever know." I pressed the letters to my chest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel broken. I felt seen. Thanksgiving came, and so did they. They came in coats too big for their frames, in wheelchairs, in borrowed dresses and worn-out shoes. They came with anxiety in their eyes, but hope in their hands. They brought nothing but themselves, and for once, that was enough. My home was filled with the people the world had cast aside. A veteran who'd spent 2 winters on the street. A trans woman who hadn't spoken to her family since she was 17. A deaf woman whose own sister had told her she was too difficult to invite. A man with schizophrenia who once told me, "I've never eaten a holiday meal without being looked at like a problem." Tonight, they were not problems. They were honoured guests. There were no assigned seats, no hierarchy, no whispered gossip in the kitchen. There was music and laughter and the kind of silence that happens only when people feel safe enough to just be. And then, at the height of the evening, I stood up. Everyone turned. I cleared my throat, held my glass high. "Tonight isn't just about food," I began. "It's about reclaiming space. It's about making room at the table for those who were told they didn't belong, for the ones who've been erased, ignored, misunderstood. This is for the forgotten, and may we never forget each other again." Applause broke out. Some stood, some cried, someone filmed it. By morning, the clip had over 1 million views. Thanksgiving for the forgotten trended for 2 days straight, and then came the message. It wasn't from a stranger. It was a group chat ping, an old thread I thought had been deleted. Mark. "Enough, stop, you've made your point." Then Mum, "You're hurting the family, Rachel. Please take it all down. This isn't how we fix things." No apology, no ownership, just pressure, panic, control. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because an hour later a new email came through. Subject line, "Feature pitch, your story." A journalist from a major digital magazine wanted to speak to me. She'd seen the video, she'd read the blog, she'd listened to the podcast. "We'd like to document the journey," she wrote, "the erasure, the reclamation, the healing." She offered a film crew, full editorial control, complete transparency. I sat with it for a moment. Then I replied, "Yes, but I'm the one telling it, not them, not anymore." Because only when I told it, unfiltered, unedited, unafraid, could the distortion finally stop. Weeks passed. Emails surfaced. Someone from the inside, still unnamed, leaked internal messages between my family members. Group threads, strategy outlines, even an actual media talking points list labelled "If Rachel Escalates." Worse still, bank records. Mark had used my name, my social security number, to take out a small business loan years ago. He hadn't repaid it. I'd never known. But the journalist's background check had flagged it. When confronted, Mark panicked. His lawyer issued a brief statement. Clerical error, misunderstanding, but the damage was done. The bank launched an investigation. His employer put him on leave. Then Mom went public. A local news segment asked her for comment. She agreed. She sat in her perfect living room, flanked by framed portraits and well-positioned floral arrangements. She looked straight into the camera and said, "I only wanted the best for Rachel. Sometimes love doesn't look how we expect it to." I watched it from my couch, my arms folded, my jaw tight, and then came the line, "If I made mistakes, they were mistakes of love." That's when the camera cut to me. The crew had asked for a reaction shot. I stared into the lens, eyes unblinking. "Love doesn't lie," I said. "Love doesn't silence. Love doesn't manipulate, discredit, or erase. So if that's what love looks like, I'll take honesty over affection any day." The room fell silent. The producer nodded, signalling cut. I exhaled slowly. Then something unexpected happened. I laughed, not out of bitterness or sarcasm, but freedom. For the first time in years, the weight was no longer mine. The shame, the silence, the stories, they belonged to them now. I'd returned what was never mine to carry. I reached out, pressed the button, shut the camera down, and smiled like I meant it. It started with a single invitation. A small liberal arts college in Oregon reached out. A student group had read my blog series, listened to the podcast, watched the clips. They asked if I would speak at their campus about boundaries, about trauma, about what happens when the people who are supposed to love you become the ones who break you. I said yes. Then came another school, then a third, then 20 more. Each talk was different, but the story remained the same. I stood before rooms filled with strangers who saw themselves in me. I told them how silence almost killed me, how truth stitched me back together. I didn't give advice. I gave permission to grieve, to rage, to heal, to leave. Sometimes afterwards, students would approach me with tears in their eyes. They'd whisper things like, "That's my mother," or "I thought it was just me." One girl pressed a note into my hand that simply said, "Thank you for making it feel survivable." And then, at a stop in Minneapolis, a man waited at the back of the lecture hall until everyone else had left. He wore a faded coat, nervous hands. "I'm David," he said, "your cousin." It took me a moment to place him. He hadn't spoken to me in years. "I read everything," he said, "and I want to say I'm sorry. I knew what was happening. I saw it, but I didn't say anything." His voice cracked. "I was afraid of being the next one they cut off." I didn't hug him. I didn't cry. I just nodded. "That fear," I said, "is how they keep us quiet." He nodded back. "Not anymore." A week later, a publishing house reached out, a mid-size indie press. They'd followed my blog, heard the interviews, watched the film. They wanted to turn the series into a book. They weren't interested in rewriting it to be more palatable. They didn't want a neat bow at the end. Just the truth, exactly as I told it. We signed the deal. The book would be called The Table I Built. Months passed. The world moved on, but I didn't return to who I was before. That version of me was gone, and I wasn't grieving her anymore. I was building someone new. And then came the TEDx invitation. The email subject line made my stomach flutter. "We'd love to feature your voice." I said yes. The day of the talk, I stood behind the curtain, palms open, breathing steady. The lights dimmed, the music faded. The host called my name. I stepped into the light, and I didn't shake, not once. I told the story again, not just of pain, but of reclamation. Not just of being erased, but of choosing to rewrite. I ended with this. Sometimes the family we're born into is not the one that saves us. Sometimes the family we choose, or the one that chooses us, is where we finally get to live. Applause roared like thunder, but it was the quiet afterward that stayed with me. That Thanksgiving, I didn't plan a gala. I stayed home. But I wasn't alone, because a month earlier I met her. Her name was Ivy, 6 years old, brown eyes too big for her face. Foster system kid, left on the steps of a shelter the day before Thanksgiving last year. I was volunteering there. She clung to my leg like she'd known me forever. When the caseworker said she needed placement, I didn't hesitate. I didn't wait to feel ready. I just knew I couldn't let her feel forgotten. The paperwork wasn't easy. The process took months. But this time, when I signed the line that said legal guardian, my hands didn't shake either. Ivy called me Mama 2 weeks later. She asked once, "Why don't we see your family?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "Because not everyone who shares your blood shares your heart." She nodded, like she understood more than she should. So I told her what I believe. Family isn't who you come from, Ivy. Family is where you're allowed to be who you are. And now, this year, as autumn settles in again, Ivy and I prepare our own little Thanksgiving. It's just us. And a few others we've chosen. Alina is bringing pie. The barista is making sweet potato casserole. David's flying in from Portland. The woman from the shelter, who used to be a guest, now brings flowers for the table every year. There's no drama, no scripts, just food and music and joy that doesn't come with a price tag. We sit around the table, passing dishes and stories and laughter. Ivy leans her head on my shoulder. I smile and I think this is the table I built. This year I'm not at the kids' table. I set the table. And it's full of people who truly love me.